Imagine a windswept town called Laramie, Wyoming, sprawled across a high plateau where the Laramie River cuts through golden plains, and the snowy range mountains shimmer under a sky so wide it feels like it could swallow you whole. Here, in a brick ranch house with a low roof and a yard of sagebrush bending in the breeze, William, Will Carter and Diane D. Larson lived, their 33 years of marriage a tower of stone, once unshakable, now crumbling, until, at 56, in the biting cold of November 2022, they broke. Not with a thunderclap of anger or a gale of sobs, but with a quiet fracture, like a rock splitting under frost, a moment where they stood in the living room, the heater humming, and felt the foundation crack. They'd raised a daughter, filled a home with the rhythm of prairie life, and now, in the stillness, the walls stood bare. He was a rancher, his hands leathered from rains, herding cattle across the open range. She was a potter, her fingers clay-caked, shaping vessels that held the earth's breath. By their mid-50s, their tower had eroded to dust, leaving only the howl of wind where voices once echoed. Picture this, two souls stepping from a collapsed frame, into a world they'd forgotten how to climb, Will with his lasso, Dee with her wheel, until, by 59, they build new heights in the raw, boundless light of the West. Step back to 1988 and see them meeting at a rodeo on the edge of Laramie, the air thick with dust and the bellow of steers, the sun blazing down on a crowd roaring from the bleachers. Will, 23, stands by the corral, his denim jacket faded, his dark hair matted under a Stetson, a coil of rope dangling from his hip. Dee, 23 too, leans against a fence, her overalls streaked with clay, her blonde hair tied with a bandana, a tray of rough mugs cooling from her kiln. Their eyes lock, his a deep brown, hers a clear hazel, and he saunters over, boots kicking dirt, flashing a crooked grin. They talk, about the mountains catching the dusk, about his love for taming the wild, about her joy in molding earth into form. He trades a lasso loop for a mug, their hands brushing over the clay, and asks her to share a beer as the sky bruises purple, the rodeo lights flickering on. She nods, her laugh a gust in the wind, and says yes. A year later, in June 1989, they marry in a pasture off Highway 287, his shirt stiff with starch, her dress a patchwork of her own glaze, the air sharp with sage as friends toss hay. He promises to fence her days, she vows to shape his nights. For decades, they raised that structure strong. Here their daughter, Emma, burst in like a prairie storm in 1991, a fierce spark with Will's broad frame and Dee's quick hands, racing through the house like a tumbleweed on the wind. Will swaps dawn rides for dusk lessons, showing Emma how to rope a calf, their shadows stretching across the yard as the herd lows. Dee spins her wheel, teaches Emma to throw a pot, the ranch alive with her shouts and the slap of clay, the air earthy with glaze and dust. In 1993, they buy the brick ranch, a solid shell with a tin chimney, a porch where snow drifts, and a kitchen smelling of beef and bread. Will builds a barn, his spurs jangling, dust thick as he brands steers, the plains echoing his calls. Dee sets up her kiln, her pot stacking high, bowls, vases, her garden a patch of columbine and yarrow braving the frost. Picture summer dusk, Emma chasing jackrabbits, Will grilling steak, Dee hanging wind chimes that clink like bells, the snowy range a silver ridge beyond. Money runs lean, blizzards bury the gate, but the house stands, a fortress for their shared stone. Feel the cracks spread. By their 40s, the tower leans. Emma leaves for Cheyenne in 2010, studying agriculture, her room a hold of ropes and clay shards, the silence seeping into the bricks. The ranch grows still, the porch sags lonely, the chimney cold. Will heads out earlier, his horse cutting through dawn frost, his voice a grunt when he trudges home, hands chapped, long ride, Dee, herds restless. She throws pots longer, her shop in town a refuge, her chatter thinning to sighs as she slumps into a rocker, busy day, Will, folks want cheap now. He tries, let's walk Vidavoo, feel the rocks, or, how about supper at the Cavalryman, but she shakes her head, too beat, maybe next week. They eat apart, him with a cold jerky by the barn, her with stew in the nook, the garden ragged, their words lost in the wind off the range. By 2020, he takes the bunkhouse, it's caught hard under a tarp, the window icing with a plane they can't cross. Since the break in November 2022. Will's 56, his hands knotted like the juniper he burns, his hair graying under his hat. Dee's 56 too, her fingers stiff from years of clay, her hazel eyes soft behind smudged glasses. He's just branded a steer, its bellow fading in the cold, when he steps inside, snow melting off his boots, and finds her at the table, glazing a bowl, her tea cold. "We're not solid anymore," he says, his voice rough as the plains outside. She looks up, her brush still, her breath a puff in the chill. "I know, Will, we're just rubble, aren't we?" He nods, slow as a rock settling. "Yeah, Dee, we are, it's time to let it fall." They sit by the chimney, its embers low, the wind rattling the panes, and agree, 33 years is a wall collapsed. No clash, no tears, just a base too weak to hold. They part with a grip, her hand cool on his, a last stone dropped. Watch the heights rise. They sell the ranch, too heavy with dust, and split the cash even. Dee moves to a loft above her shop, a snug space with a high ceiling, her kiln humming by a window streaked with frost. Will rents a cabin near the river, a weathered box with log walls, a chair facing the water, a rack for his gear. Emma calls from Cheyenne, "Dad, Mom, why now, what broke?" They stumble, "It didn't break, kid, it just weathered away," they say. Friends split, some stay with Dee, buying her pots, others meet Will for beers at altitude. The first year is a frost. Will herds in a blur, his cattle steady but his heart loose, nights spent rocking in that chair, the rivers murmur a stone he can't lift. Dee throws in a haze, her pots smooth but her soul slack, evenings by her window, the snow a veil over a town she can't shape. They miss Emma's tromp, each other's rustle, the house is grown in a storm. See the peaks climb in 2023. At 57, Will joins a fly fishing club, a spark after a rancher brags about the streams, his hands trading reins for rods, casting into the Laramie River's flow. He fumbles, his casts wild from years on horseback, but he casts on, hooked on the tug, the splash on his boots, the water glinting gold. The crew is rough, retirees, a young guide, a widow named Fay who fishes with a steady flick and a flask of whiskey. They meet weekends, wading riffles, the sun baking their backs, hawks soaring above. Will buys a rod, a bamboo beauty with a worn grip, and fishes solo one dawn, the plains waking in amber as he lands a trout. It's not big, but it flies, a height scaled anew. Dee, at 57, takes up rockhounding, grabbing a pick from a shop on Grand Avenue, her hands swapping clay for stone, hunting agates in the Medicine Bow Hills. She stumbles, her grip shaky from years at a wheel, but she digs on, drawn to the gleam, the dust on her skin, her first find, a red jasper, tucked in her pack. Feel them soar by 58. Will sells his truck, buys a camper, a green rambler with a rack, and hauls it to the snowy range, his rod rattling, the peaks rising sharp against a blazing sky. He's not fast, anglers pass, Fay teases, but speed's not it, the cast is, the river a new range to roam. He starts a journal, ropes and rivers, scribbling about divorce, trout, and the rush of open water, his words bold as his old brands. Ranchers read it, then strangers, folks in Casper, Rawlins, a guy in Montana saying, "I'm fishing too." Dee trades her van for a bike, a teal Schwinn with a basket, and pedals the plains to Centennial, her pick strapped tight, the wind hot on her face. She joins a jewelry class, crafting stones into rings, facets, shines, her hand steady with a new spark. Emma visits Will, sees the rod, grins, "You're flowing, Dad." She sees Dee's ring, hugs her, "You're gleaming, Mom." At 59, they build in light. Will cuts ranch days, leads fishing trips, streams, tales, his voice deep, his boots wet with stories of currents. He camps at Lake Marie one fall, fishes under stars, wakes to a dawn that fires the water pink, his camper a perch on the shore. D scales back the shop, hunts for joy, digs, finds, her rings stacking up, sold beside her pots. She bikes to Happy Jack, polishes a stone, the chill sharp on her tongue. They're not rich, his cabin smells of fish and pine, her loft of clay and solder. They're not famed, his journal has 490 readers, her jewels stay local. But they're Will and Dee, vivid, alive, rebuilt. They meet once, by chance at a river bend in 2025, him with a fly line, her with a polished agate. They grin, swap a nod, part warm, two heights freshly raised. Divorce at 56 broke us down, they'd say now, their voices bright. It let us climb again, higher. Picture America's plains, Laramie's winds to every open stretch, where couples like Will and Dee break every day. Gray divorces aren't falls, they're ascents. I'm Jordan Lane, and this is Gray Divorce Diaries. Their tale is real, raw, radiant, risen. If it lifts you, subscribe. Every day, a new story, people like us, climbing after 55. You're not alone. Let's scale your peak together.